culture analysis to explore Korean culture through music. Vivian said she went back to LA High a few years ago, and the fourth floor no longer exists. Turns out the place closed down shortly after that decathlon coach left the school. Current teachers she spoke with had no idea it had even been a thing. You can share these stories or others from the Moth Archive and buy tickets to Moth storytelling events in your area through our website, moth.org. There are Moth events year-round. Find a show near you and come out and tell a story. You can find us on Facebook and X at the Moth.
Looks like her cats were the neighbors, right?
And that's it for this episode of the Moth Radio Hour. Thank you to our storytellers for sharing with us and to you for listening. I hope you'll join us next
People
time.
have been playing it today.
Big fire out here. Everything's burnt on this side. Or if they use the road as a fire break. Kind of looks like I don't see any burn on that side. For sure, burn up here.
This episode of the Moth Radio Hour was produced by me, Jay
Smells
Allison,
like fire.
and Jody Powell, who also hosted and directed the stories in the show. Co-producer is Vicki Merrick, associate producer Emily Couch. Additional education program instruction by Amy Blumberg and Eric Carrera. The rest of the Moth leadership team includes Sarah Haberman, Sarah Austin Jeunesse, Jennifer Hickson, Meg Bowles, Kate Tellers, Marina Kluche, Leanne Gully, Suzanne Rust, Brandon Grant, Sarah Jenkins, and Aldi Kaza.
Rocky Mountain
The
Range.
Moth education program is
Rocky
made
Mountain
possible by
Ranches.
generous support from unlikely collaborators. Additional program support is provided by the New York State Council on the Arts, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, Alice Gottesman, the Cornelia T. Bailey Foundation, and Con Edison. All stories are true as remembered and affirmed by the storytellers. Our theme music is by The Drift. Other music in this hour from Stellwagen Symphonette, Antonio Vivaldi, Phil Cook, Little Bang, and Espen. We receive funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. The Moth Radio Hour is produced by Atlantic Public Media in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and presented by PRX. For more about our podcast, for information on pitching us your own story, we always hope you will, and everything else, go to our website, themoth.org.
This is CPR News, 89.5 FM, KPRN Grand Junction, 88.3 FM, KPRH Montrose, 88.3 FM, KPYR Craig, and at CPR.org.
Radio helps you stay informed, entertained, and connected with your community. And so does your smart speaker, because your smart speaker is also a radio. Just ask your smart speaker to play CPR News. Stay connected at home and never miss a minute.
I kind of like my dumb speakers.
You kind of like what?
My dumb speakers. Instead of a smart speaker. Dumb speakers.
Support comes from 5280 Magazine. The annual Top of the Town event is back at Cherry Creek North on July 18th. Featuring bites from local restaurants, cocktails, live music, and more. Tickets at 5280.com.
I feel as long as I gave it my all, I did the good job as I know I could do.
Did I tell you
That's
Post
what
Skinny
this
got
is
a
about.
job?
President Biden says he's not dropping out of the 2024 race, but the
Around the
pressure
corner.
continues to
What they
build.
do in
For
shop
Saturday, July 6th, this is All Things Considered from NPR
Don't
News.
get paid for something.
Yeah, you did. You can go sell your shit.
No, you don't.
I mean,
Good stuff.
today on the show, what the Supreme Court's recent ruling on presidential immunity might mean for the case accusing Donald Trump of trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
Featuring public
I'd say
life.
it got, if not completely nullified. So there's big parts of the case that the court have made clear just go away.
Also, a NASA spaceship is headed to return to Earth delayed. What's it like to be an astronaut waiting to come home?
So we were kind of stuck in space, low on supplies, and we didn't know how long. It was kind of funny. It was like COVID.
And a new podcast explores the life of Mexican pop icon Juan Gabriel after the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. Another Democratic member of Congress is calling on President Biden to withdraw his re-election bid. Clay Masters from Minnesota Public Radio has more.
U.S. Representative Angie Craig says she did not come to the decision lightly, but there is, quote, simply too much at stake to risk a second Donald Trump presidency. She says she has great respect for President Biden's decades of service, but calls on her party to put forward an open and transparent democratic process to select a new nominee. This week she told NPR News that constituents don't like their options on the presidential ballot this year, but stopped short of calling on him to drop out following his debate performance. Craig is in a competitive House district in Minnesota. Craig joins a small but growing group of U.S. House members who called on Biden to step down as the nominee. Biden said he would not do that several times Friday night during an interview on ABC. For NPR News, I'm Clay Masters in St. Paul.
A federal judge today postponed some deadlines in former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Prosecutors more time to process Trump's request for a longer pause in the wake of the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. Judge Aileen Cannon says special counsel Jack Smith has until July 18th to respond to Trump's request for a broad delay.
Didn't tell you what this
The judge
is.
hasn't yet set a date, though, for Trump and his
took
two
the sign down.
co-defendants to go to trial. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all charges. More than 100,000 homes in Ukraine are without power and water after a series of airstrikes carried out by Russian forces. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports Russia also stepped up attacks on the east, killing at least 11 people and injuring dozens more.
The northern region of Sumy borders Russia and is often the target of Russian shelling. On Friday night, Russian strikes hit energy infrastructure in the region, cutting off power to tens of thousands of households. The regional capital, where more than 250,000 people lived before the full-scale invasion, also lost access to running water after Russian drone attacks. In the eastern Donetsk region, Russian troops continue to assault Chasiv Yar, a strategic town that the Kremlin has been trying to occupy for months. Ukrainian troops partially withdrew from the town late last week. Military analysts say if Russia occupies Chasiv Yar, it would make it easier to take over other towns in the area. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
Officials in Texas are telling residents along the coast to be prepared for Tropical Storm Beryl, which is nearing landfall. The outer bands of the storm, which is expected to become a hurricane again as it moves over warm water, expected to hit shore tomorrow with landfall on Monday. Beryl hit Mexican's Yucatan Peninsula yesterday. The storm has maximum sustained winds of 60 miles an hour. You're listening to NPR News.
We get those out here, don't we?
100 life-size
I was gonna say
sculptures
68
of
nothing.
Indian elephants
I
are
didn't
starting
know
a
that.
cross-country journey in the U.S. this holiday weekend. NPR's Chloe Veltman reports the Great Elephant Migration traveling art exhibit aims
Looks
to
like
spread
snow, but it's
awareness
cloud.
about conservation efforts.
Artisans in Tamil Nadu in southern India made the enormous lifelike elephant sculptures out of lantana camera. That's the tough, invasive weed that's been encroaching heavily upon the elephant's natural forest habitat, pushing them onto tea and coffee plantations where they coexist with humans. Tash Takekara is a wildlife conservationist connected with the project.
So it's almost trying to change the dominant conservation paradigm, to think of the world as a whole rather than this very binary separation of people and nature.
The sculptures can be seen in Newport, Rhode Island through early September. From there they will head to New York City, Miami, the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana, and finally Los Angeles State Summit. invitations to the Olympics, including the wrestlers. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News from Washington.
I don't think there should be allowed to compete.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BC&C Foundation,
whose North Star is to eliminate equity gaps in post-secondary completion by 2040 so that underserved learners have greater opportunity for social and economic mobility.
Well, Russia takes a lot of pride in their Olympians. That's why I think they should be able to compete.
So fuck Russia. I have a lonely house out there by itself.
There's a view.
Huh?
There's a view. There's another one on top of that hill way over there.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm
Trees over there, so
for Scott Detrow. Democrats have been in panic mode this week over whether President Biden has what it takes to win and serve another 4 years. All this after last month's disastrous debate. So yesterday, President Biden addressed these concerns in a high-profile